Welcome back to Andy and Anna Talks, where we explore the deepest questions of modern life.
Great to be here.
And today, oh, this is a big one. A paradox that's been bothering a lot of us, I think.
Hmm.
Why do smart people, despite all their intelligence, often find life confusing, exhausting, or, well, kind of unfulfilling?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. It almost feels like those very traits, the intelligence, should be assets, shouldn't they?
Exactly, like they should open doors, right? Better jobs, more logical decisions, maybe just a smoother ride overall.
It does seem counterintuitive. We tend to think, more brain power equals navigating life better.
Uh-huh.
But the reality, well, it's often much more complex. And what's fascinating right from the get-go is that smart isn't really this single monolithic thing we often imagine it to be.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that then, this idea of smart. Because it's definitely not just about having a high IQ score, is it?
Not at all. Not even close. When we talk about intelligence, sure, we often first think of IQ. That's the ability to analyze, solve abstract problems, uh, think logically,
Right, the traditional book smarts, sort of.
pretty much. But that's really only one piece of a much bigger puzzle. There's also emotional intelligence, EQ,
Okay.
which is, about understanding and managing our own emotions, but also reading people, recognizing, and responding effectively to their emotions.
Right, so IQ is like your logic muscle, and EQ is more your people radar
Yeah,
and maybe your own internal weather report handler.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And then there's this other thing. You might call it life intelligence.
Life intelligence. Okay.
Yeah, those practical everyday skills that actually help us navigate the real world, managing finances, handling social dynamics,
Yeah.
just dealing with the unexpected bumps in the road.
The stuff that doesn't really show up on a standardized test, right?
Generally.
Like, can you put together that IKEA bookcase without having a complete meltdown? Or can you negotiate a fair price for a car? That kind of thing.
Precisely. And this is often where the disconnect lies. Someone can be incredibly gifted cognitively, a real whiz at complex problems,
Uh-huh.
yet really struggle with the more practical or the emotional demands of just daily life.
Oh, totally. I know people who can dissect, like, Nietzsche with incredible precision,
Right.
but figuring out how to, say, book a dentist appointment
Yeah.
feels like climbing Everest.
That really highlights a crucial point.
Very.
Our society, by and large, tends to really overvalue those academic cognitive things, the grades, the degrees, the
Mm.
pure logic,
Yeah, definitely.
often at the expense of developing and even just recognizing those equally vital life skills.
It's like we're trained super hard to ace the exam, but nobody really teaches us how to navigate the actual classroom of life itself.
Well said.
And this imbalance, this overemphasis on just one type of smart, it feels like it can really set the stage for some of the frustrations we're talking about.
Absolutely. It can often feed directly into another really common experience for highly intelligent people,
Mm.
the tendency to overthink things.
Mm. Ah, yes. Overthinking. The curse, maybe. I feel like that's a core part of this whole smart person struggle.
It really is.
It's like having a supercomputer for a brain, but you're just using it to endlessly analyze the same tiny, insignificant problem over and over.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's as if that incredibly powerful analytical engine is just constantly running, processing every detail, every possibility,
Mm.
even when the situation really doesn't need that level of intense scrutiny.
It's the Ferrari brain stuck in rush hour traffic.
Exactly.
All that power, all that potential, just idling and fuming and getting absolutely nowhere fast. And it so easily leads to what people call analysis paralysis.
Right, analysis paralysis, when you can see like 10 layers of potential outcomes for every single choice,
Mm-hmm.
and you anticipate every possible consequence, well, the sheer weight of all those considerations can just become overwhelming. It makes it incredibly hard to actually make a decision or take any action.
You get stuck in this loop of what if? Like, if I do this, then that might happen, which could lead to this other thing. And oh my God, maybe I'll accidentally, destroy the entire universe with this email.
Slight chuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can feel that extreme sometimes.
So you end up doing nothing.
And the overthinking doesn't necessarily stop once a decision is made, does it? Often there's this persistent cycle of regret or
So the
rumination,
rumination.
constantly questioning if it was the right choice, replaying conversations in your head,
Yeah.
dissecting every tiny interaction.
The mental replay. It's like your brain has its own internal film studio, constantly re-editing past events in like excruciating slow motion detail.
Yeah.
And this relentless analysis, it can really just suck the joy right out of present experiences, can it?
It absolutely can.
Yeah.
Instead of simply enjoying a moment, say, watching a sunset,
Right.
the overthinking mind is busy dissecting it or anticipating future problems or
Yeah.
comparing it to past sunsets or thinking about astrophysics.
Exactly. You're trying to enjoy this beautiful sunset, but your brain is simultaneously running through, I don't know, climate change models, the existential dread of our fleeting existence, and that awkward thing you said to your cousin 3 years ago.
Laugh softly.
Yeah.
Yes, it's exhausting.
So
It
exhausting.
becomes this kind of mental obstacle course.
Yeah.
The brain generates these incredibly elaborate and often quite negative narratives that feel so real and convincing.
It's a mental trap, and the smarter you are, the more intricate and, frankly, believable those traps can become. It's almost like your own brain is gaslighting you, but with like footnotes and well-researched facts and logical-sounding arguments.
That's a really insightful way to put it. It feels logical, even if it's leading you down a negative path. And if we connect this back to how intelligent individuals are often, perceived and treated, especially early on,
Oh, okay.
we start to see another layer of this complexity.
Right, because think about it. Smart kids often get a lot of praise, don't they?
They do.
They get identified early on. Gifted, bright, so much potential. And that creates this whole set of expectations, both internal and external.
Exactly. That early, consistent, positive reinforcement around intellectual achievement, it can lead to this really strong sense of identity being tied up almost exclusively with being the smart one.
So your actual worth becomes linked to your intellect. It feels like that's who you are.
Precisely. And if your whole identity is wrapped up in being the smart person, then making a mistake or even just, struggling with something,
Yeah.
it doesn't just feel like a mistake. It can feel like a fundamental failure of who you are at your core.
Ooh, yeah, that's heavy.
And consequently, this can fuel a really strong drive towards perfectionism.
Perfectionism.
The
Right.
fear of not meeting those incredibly high standards you've set for yourself, or maybe subconsciously picked up from all that praise, it can paradoxically lead straight to procrastination.
It's the ultimate catch-22, isn't it? You want everything to be absolutely perfect, so the fear of it not being perfect is so overwhelming that you just put it off.
You avoid starting.
It's like your inner critic has a PhD in finding flaws before you've even begun.
Chuckles. That's about right. And what's quite striking, actually, is the prevalence of anxiety among highly intelligent individuals. There's often this external assumption that they must be super confident,
Totally.
but that can be in stark contrast to their internal experience.
It's almost a surprise to some people, I think, when they realize just how much self-doubt can plague those who seem so outwardly capable.
Definitely.
You'd think all that brain power would translate into unshakable confidence, but sometimes it seems to breed the opposite. This deep-seated fear of, well, not being good enough.
And even when achievements do happen, even when you succeed,
Yeah.
they can be undermined by these persistent feelings of inadequacy or that nagging fear of being exposed as a fraud.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, exactly. That persistent disbelief in your own success, attributing it all to luck or timing or fooling people rather than your actual ability.
So you achieve something great, and instead of feeling proud, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Convinced it was a fluke, and any minute now, everyone's going to realize you're not actually as smart as they think.
That's the feeling. And you can see how this could lead to a real sense of disillusionment, especially when life inevitably doesn't follow that neat, anticipated trajectory of constant upward success.
Right. That expectation of a smooth climb, maybe fueled by early academic success, can just clash so sharply with the messy, unpredictable realities of actual life.
Leading to this sense of being adrift or unfulfilled, even if you have achieved things outwardly. Which kind of brings us neatly into the realm of purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's talk about that, the existential void piece, because a lot of really bright people I know seem to hit this point, maybe late teens, early adulthood, where they just start questioning everything. The systems, the beliefs, the point of their own efforts even.
That constant intellectual probing, that deep dive into the fundamental aspects of life, capitalism, relationships, mortality, meaning itself.
Yeah.
It can, unfortunately, sometimes lead to this really profound sense that maybe nothing ultimately holds inherent significance.
When your brain is just constantly dissecting and deconstructing every single thing, you can reach this point where it feels like, well, what is the point of any of it?
From that highly intellectual, maybe slightly detached perspective, even the most basic everyday tasks can start to feel, well, stripped of their value, almost absurd.
Yeah, it's that feeling where you zoom out so far, you see the vastness of the universe and the fleeting nature of existence, and suddenly the idea of like filling out expense reports feels utterly cosmically meaningless.
Chuckles.
Right. But it's important to understand this isn't necessarily laziness. It's not a lack of motivation in the usual sense.
It can actually be a form of despair. It arises when you have this powerful intellect that isn't tethered to a strong personal sense of purpose or meaning.
It's like your intellect has carefully dismantled all the scaffolding that used to give life structure and meaning, and you're just left standing in this vast empty space with absolutely no instructions on how to rebuild anything. And this sense of being sort of fundamentally different, it can also lead to, well, social issues.
Exactly. It can definitely be compounded by feelings of social isolation.
The loneliness factor, yeah. Because being highly intelligent, or maybe just perceiving things differently, it can sometimes feel like you're operating on a completely different wavelength than most people around you.
Your thinking patterns, the depth of your processing, maybe even the sheer intensity of your emotions, it can all create this sense of being misunderstood.
We're just out of sync.
Out of sync.
Yeah, with those around you.
When you're always thinking like 5 steps ahead or feeling things really, really deeply, it can just be hard to find people who truly get that experience. It can.
Yeah.
And if you were maybe labeled the weird smart kid growing up,
Yeah.
that early experience of being marked as different can certainly feed into social anxiety later on, or just a tendency to withdraw, to retreat further into your own internal world because it feels safer there.
Right. And then you see the flip side too, right? Other smart people who seem to like overcompensate.
How so?
They become the class clown, maybe. Or the super accommodating people pleaser, almost as a strategy to mask that feeling of being different and just try to fit in somehow.
Those are definitely compensatory behaviors.
Yeah.
And while they're totally understandable as coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
they can ultimately get in the way of forming genuine, authentic connections, because you're often filtering yourself or hiding parts of your true self.
It's hard to build real intimacy when you feel like you constantly have to edit yourself or perform a role just to be accepted.
Very hard.
And all of these things we've been talking about, the overthinking, the pressure, the perfectionism, the existential angst, the isolation, unfortunately, they can kind of culminate in
Real-world burnout, yeah. We see it so often. Incredibly bright, capable individuals hitting a wall, experiencing burnout, maybe making drastic career changes, even having breakdowns, often around their 30s.
And it's typically not a lack of resilience, is it? It feels like the opposite sometimes. They've been pushing so hard for so long, driven by those high expectations and that relentlessly active mind.
Exactly. It's often not a deficit of strength at all. It's more like a lack of training, a lack of development in crucial life skills, especially around emotional processing, setting healthy boundaries, recognizing their own needs beyond just intellectual stimulation.
You spend years learning, I don't know, differential equations and historical timelines,
Right.
but nobody really teaches you how to process heartbreak or how to ask for help when you're genuinely struggling without feeling like a failure.
In fact, sometimes that intense early focus on intellectual pursuits can inadvertently hinder emotional development. It's entirely possible to have a very high IQ but still be quite underdeveloped in terms of, say, emotional literacy or regulation.
So it doesn't matter how many complex problems you can solve on paper.
Yep.
You might still find navigating a difficult conversation or managing intense anger or sadness really, really challenging. But here's the thing, right? It doesn't have to be this way. There's hope.
Absolutely. That's the crucial message here. The good news is that intelligence itself isn't the problem. Not at all. The key really lies in finding balance, intentionally cultivating those other essential aspects of well-being.
Okay, so if you're listening and you recognize yourself in, well, any or maybe all of this, what are some things that can actually help? Where do you start?
Well, seeking professional support, like therapy, can be incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
It offers a safe, supportive space to actually explore those complex thoughts and feelings, to develop better emotional awareness, and importantly, to learn healthier coping mechanisms that go beyond just pure intellectual analysis.
Therapy can be such a game changer for just getting out of your own head for a bit and connecting with what you're actually feeling.
Totally.
Mm.
And similarly, practices like mindfulness can be really helpful. They help create this crucial bit of distance between your thoughts and your automatic reactions to them.
Mm.
It's about learning to just observe those racing thoughts without immediately getting swept away by them.
Mindfulness feels like hitting the pause button on that mental hamster wheel, doesn't it?
It does.
It lets you zoom out a little, but without necessarily spiraling into more worry.
And another huge one, cultivating strong community ties.
Mm.
Finding connections with people who appreciate and value you for your whole self.
Yes.
Not just for your intellect.
Mm.
That's absolutely essential for feeling a sense of belonging and just general well-being.
Find your tribe. Seriously. Connect with people who see beyond your brain, who appreciate your heart, your weird sense of humor, your flaws, the whole messy, wonderful package.
Couldn't agree more. And also, adopting a sense of humility.
Yeah.
Recognizing that it's perfectly okay, actually. It's deeply human to not have all the answers.
Oh, that's a big one.
It can alleviate a tremendous amount of pressure.
It's so freeing to realize you don't have to be the expert on absolutely everything. That being brilliant doesn't mean you can't also be vulnerable or confused sometimes. In fact, they often go together.
And maybe consciously creating space to disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
To step away from the constant influx of information that often really appeals to intelligent minds. That can be profoundly beneficial too.
Unplug, yes. Step away from the screens, the news feeds, the endless podcasts. Maybe not this one.
Tickles, right.
But that endless stream of intellectual stimulation. Sometimes quiet and stillness are just far more valuable for your sanity.
They really are. And finally, sometimes just remembering the power of the simplest actions can be incredibly grounding.
Like what?
Like breathing.
Right. Sometimes the smartest thing you can possibly do is just take a deep breath.
Exactly. So for those of you listening who've really resonated with these challenges, please know this. You are absolutely not alone. Your experiences are valid, and there is a path towards greater well-being.
Yeah. If this whole conversation has hit home, if you've been nodding along, maybe even feeling a little emotional, we see you. You're not broken. You're not flawed. You're just navigating the world with a particularly active, insightful, and sometimes overwhelming mind.
And the goal isn't just about honing that intellect, is it? It's about cultivating a sense of wholeness, integrating all the aspects of who you are, the thinking, the feeling, the doing, the being.
Remember, your worth isn't tied to your list of achievements or your ability to solve every single problem thrown your way. You are valuable just as you are right now.
Love and acceptance, both from others and from yourself. They aren't conditional on constant performance or having everything figured out. It's truly okay to rest. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to admit you don't know.
You are absolutely allowed to slow down, to lean on others sometimes, to simply be without constantly striving or proving. And doing that, it doesn't diminish your brilliance one bit. If anything, it makes you more fully, deeply human.
Beautifully put. These actions don't diminish your intelligence. They enrich your humanity.
So here's to all the thinkers out there, all the feelers, all the beautifully overcomplicated souls listening. Keep going. Keep exploring. Keep learning. That's part of who you are. But maybe, just maybe, give yourself permission to slow down a little bit, too.
We'll see you next week on Andy Anna Talks. And hey, take care of that beautiful brain of yours.